The rain was merciless, drumming against the city streets with a force that made the world feel smaller, as if it was closing in. Ava Mercer clenched her coat tighter, her fingers stiff from the cold, as she darted across the crowded sidewalk. The wind howled through the alleyways, sending icy raindrops slashing across her face. She cursed under her breath. Her umbrella had turned inside out just 2 blocks ago, a victim of the relentless storm. It had been a brutal day. Work had drained her, each meeting another reminder that she was constantly chasing something: success, stability, perfection, without ever truly catching it. Now, soaked to the bone and exhausted, all she wanted was the familiar comfort of a hot drink and a quiet moment to breathe. The cafe on the corner was a beacon in the storm, its golden light spilling onto the wet pavement, promising warmth, promising solace. She shoved the door open, and a small bell jingled overhead. The scent of roasted coffee beans and cinnamon wrapped around her like an embrace, and for the first time that day, she allowed herself to exhale. Shaking off the rain from her coat, she ran a hand through her damp hair and looked around. The place was packed. Every table was occupied, except one. Or, at least, almost. Near the window, a man sat alone, lost in a book, fingers lazily tracing the rim of his coffee cup. He had the kind of presence that drew attention without trying: dark, tousled hair, a strong jawline, and a certain air of quiet thoughtfulness. He wasn't like the usual rushed businessmen she saw in the city. There was something unhurried about him, as if time bent in his favor. Ava hesitated. Their eyes met. Just for a moment. Something about his gaze unsettled her. Not in a bad way, but in a way that made her suddenly aware of herself. Of her damp clothes clinging to her skin. Of her own breath.
Rough weather,
He commented, his voice smooth, with a hint of amusement. Ava blinked, caught off guard.
Tell me about it.
She muttered, glancing around once more. There was still no free table. The man studied her for a moment before tilting his head toward the empty chair across from him.
would you like to sit?
She hesitated, considering. Normally, she wasn't the type to accept invitations from strangers. She valued control, predictability. Sitting with an unknown man in a crowded cafe on a stormy evening didn't exactly fit into her carefully structured life. But something about him, about the way he watched her, as if he had already figured her out, made her pulse quicken.
Why not?
She murmured, pulling out the chair. As she sat down, the rain pounded harder against the window beside them. Outside, the city was a blur of water and headlights. But in here, something else had just begun. Something unexpected. Something that would change everything. And neither of them knew it yet. Ava never believed in fate. She believed in choices, in effort, in the logical path from cause to effect. And yet, sitting across from Ethan Carter in that small cafe had set something into motion that she could neither control nor explain. Their coffee meeting had turned into a habit, one that neither of them acknowledged outright, but both silently craved. Mornings when they found themselves in the same cafe by coincidence, or was it? Soon became planned coffee dates. Then came late-night walks under the city's flickering streetlights, conversations stretched into the early hours, where words felt like secrets and laughter echoed like promises. Ava had always kept her heart guarded, convinced that love was a risk with poor returns. But Ethan with his easy smiles and the way he saw poetry in the everyday, had a way of dismantling her carefully placed walls without even trying. One evening, as they strolled through Central Park, he nudged her playfully with his shoulder.
Admit it.
He teased, his eyes dancing in the golden glow of the lamplights.
You look forward to seeing me every day.
Ava scoffed, though the warmth in her chest betrayed her.
Don't flatter yourself, Carter.
But you didn't deny it.
She rolled her eyes but couldn't stop her lips from curling into a smile. It had been months now, and yet every time he looked at her, it was like he was seeing something she couldn't. like she was a puzzle he was determined to solve.
You know,
He mused, kicking at a stray pebble.
you don't always have to have a plan for everything.
I like knowing what's next.
She countered.
Maybe that's why we work.
He said.
You plan. I improvise.
His words made something tighten in her chest. We work. Was that what this was? Something real? Ava had always assumed love came with warning signs. She thought she'd recognize it the way a storm announced itself. Dark clouds, strong winds, something obvious and impossible to ignore. But love with Ethan wasn't a storm. It was a slow unraveling, a quiet certainty that settled into the spaces between them. And that terrified her. Because if something was real, it could be lost. That fear gnawed at her, whispering doubts, reminding her of past disappointments, of people who had promised forever and left anyway. One night, as they sat in her apartment, sharing takeout from the same carton, Ethan leaned back, watching her with that knowing gaze of his.
You're scared.
He murmured. Ava froze, chopsticks halfway to her mouth.
Of what?
His smile was soft, understanding.
Of this. Of us.
She opened her mouth to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. Because he was right. Ethan sighed, setting his food down.
Look, Ava, I don't know what's going to happen. I can't promise we won't hurt each other. But I do know that I want this, you. And I think you want this too.
Her heart pounded, the weight of his words settling deep. And for the first time in her life, Ava didn't have an answer. She was falling. But she wasn't sure if she was ready to hit the ground. Love had never felt fragile before. For months, Ava and Ethan had been inseparable. Their lives had intertwined so seamlessly that it felt impossible to imagine a world where they weren't together. But life, as it always did, had other plans. Ethan's phone call came late on a Wednesday night.
Ava, I got the offer.
His voice buzzed with excitement, but beneath it, there was something else. Hesitation. Uncertainty. She sat up in bed, gripping the phone tighter.
The publisher?
Yeah,
He exhaled, a shaky breath.
they want me in London. For at least a year.
The words settled between them, heavy and unmoving. Ava forced herself to swallow the lump forming in her throat. She had always known this was possible. He was a writer, a dreamer. His stories were meant to be out in the world. And yet, the thought of waking up and not having him beside her, of empty coffee dates and lonely nights, made her stomach twist.
When would you leave?
She asked, her voice barely above a whisper.
Next month.
Silence stretched between them. Ava knew what she was supposed to say. Congratulations, Ethan. I'm so proud of you. But the words stuck in her throat. Finally, he said,
I'll come back, Ava. This doesn't change us.
but it did. She nodded, even though he couldn't see her.
Yeah,
She lied.
of course.
At first, they tried. They sent long messages, voice notes filled with laughter, scheduled late-night calls that sometimes stretched until dawn. But time had a cruel way of unraveling things. At first, it was the missed calls.
Sorry, I was in a meeting. I passed out early, long day.
Then, the texts became shorter.
Miss you. Talk soon?
Then, the time difference became more than just numbers, it became a wall. Ava found herself reaching for her phone less. What was the point of waiting for a message that might never come? The silence between them grew heavier, and with each passing day, it felt more like a goodbye neither of them wanted to say. One evening, as she sat in the cafe where they had first met, she stared at the empty chair across from her. It used to be his. Now, it was just another seat. She wanted to believe that love could survive anything, that they were strong enough. But love wasn't just words whispered over the phone. It was presence. It was knowing that at the end of the day, you could reach across and touch the person you loved. And right now, Ethan felt like a memory more than a man. That night, she almost sent him a message. Maybe we should, But before she could finish the thought, her phone buzzed.
I'm coming home.
Her heart stopped. She read the words again. And again. And for the first time in months, she let herself believe. Maybe love wasn't lost after all. The rain came down in sheets. A relentless downpour that blurred the city lights into hazy streaks of gold and red. Ava stood just outside the cafe where it had all begun, the cold seeping through her coat, her hands trembling, not from the cold, but from the weight of the moment. Ethan was back. She had reread his message 100 times, yet standing there, waiting for him, she still couldn't believe it. Was this real? Or was it just another fleeting moment, one she'd grasped for only to watch it slip through her fingers? Then she saw him. Through the storm, he emerged, his dark hair damp from the rain, his breath visible in the cold air. His eyes locked onto hers instantly, as if the months apart had been nothing more than seconds. He didn't slow down, didn't hesitate. He crossed the street, his movements urgent, as if he was afraid that if he didn't reach her now, he never would. When he stopped in front of her, he was soaked, raindrops trailing down his face, but there was nothing but fire in his gaze.
I should have never left,
he said, his voice breathless, desperate. Ava swallowed, her heart hammering in her chest.
Ethan.
No.
He cut her off, stepping closer, his hands shaking as he reached for hers.
I need you to hear me. I thought I could do it, Ava. I thought I could be away from you, that the phone calls and messages would be enough. But they weren't. Nothing was.
His fingers tightened around hers, as if anchoring himself to her.
Every single day, I woke up thinking about you. And every night, I fell asleep missing you.
Ava felt the sting of tears behind her eyes, but she refused to blink them away.
Then why did you take so long to come back?
Ethan exhaled, his jaw clenching.
Because I was an idiot. Because I was scared.
He let out a broken laugh.
Because I thought I had to choose between my dream and you. And then I realized.
His voice cracked, and he took a step closer, his forehead nearly touching hers.
You are my dream, Ava.
Her breath hitched.
I don't want a life where you're just a memory.
He whispered.
I don't want love that feels like waiting. I want us every day for the rest of our lives.
And then, in the middle of the storm, Ethan did the one thing Ava never expected. He dropped to one knee. She gasped, covering her mouth with her hand as he pulled a small velvet box from his coat pocket.
Ava Mercer,
he said, his voice unwavering despite the rain pouring over them.
Will you marry me?
She should have been frozen, overwhelmed by the magnitude of it all. But in that moment, all she felt was clarity. Because the truth was, she had been waiting for this, for him, all along. A slow smile broke through her tears, and she nodded, her voice shaky but sure.
Yes.
She whispered. Then, louder, through the rain and laughter and love spilling between them.
Yes, I do.
Ethan surged to his feet, slipping the ring onto her trembling finger before pulling her into his arms, his lips crashing against hers in a kiss that tasted like forever. And as the city swirled around them, as the rain poured and the world kept moving, one thing was certain. This love, their love, was never meant to be lost. It was meant to be found, over and over again.